Welcome to Streaming Into the Void, where we discuss the streaming news for the week ending August 9th, 2026. I'm Kim Hollis, digital marketing expert, whose husband wants her to read aloud that she is once again leveling up.
Sometimes one of the greatest joys of my life is just getting to bask in the glow of Kim's greatness. I am not saying that sarcastically. I am saying that with all the purity in my heart. She's even better than you think she is.
Aw. With me is Tim Brighty, content creator and gamer, moving to Kansas City.
Yeah, one of the few good things you can't get in this area of New York is barbecue. So if nothing else, there'll be that.
Just be sure to buy yourself a lot of shirts, Tim.
Yeah, yes.
Also, David Mumpower, author of Disney Demystified and streaming media analyst, who has returned to the library after many years away.
Raul, I don't know if you've gotten there yet, but there are a lot of flood in the library. I mean, a lot.
I was all excited thinking we were talking about a library. And the podcast is produced and edited by Raul Buriel, who went to the movies on Thursday afternoon like a hobo.
Yeah, no joke. My daughter, who's a camp counselor at a summer camp, got sent home because of all the smoke, was having cabin fever. So, yay, I took the afternoon off and went to the movies. And there was a lot of people there.
Yeah, I've done that too. Gone to like the movies on a weekday and then like, don't you people have jobs?
This week, we have an update on the Paramount WBD merger, and it's not good news for the Ellisons.
Yep, we mentioned last week how both parties in the current lawsuit to block the merger had submitted to the judge their opinions as to when the trial should happen. Paramount wanted the trial in November. The attorneys general who are challenging the merger wanted a trial next April. The judge ultimately decided that the trial would happen in March, which is almost next April. So in essence, the attorneys general basically got what they wanted. This is terrible news for the Ellisons because of a number of different factors, largely related to financing and because of the political support that they may lose after the election in November. You can't paint it any other way. David Ellison, who is in charge of Paramount Skydance, wrote an op-ed this week and made the case for why the merger should happen, but it was frankly a rather weak argument, largely related to the news organizations at Paramount, which is CBS News, and the news organization they would take over if they merged with Warner Brothers, which would be CNN, saying, trust me, bro, I've got this. The news will be straight down the middle, not biased at all. But like I said, it was a weak argument because you just need to look to see what David Ellison has done at CBS News since he took over Paramount, having put right-wing pundit Barry Weiss in charge of CBS News, and the fallout from all that has not been good optics for David Ellison and CBS. So for him to suggest that, no, trust me, bro, everything at CNN will be great if we take over is laughable on its face. What's more is that none of the lawsuit to block the merger makes any mention of CNN. The attorneys general were very smart in omitting CNN from any of their arguments because they knew immediately that Paramount would put CNN up as an offering saying, oh, you don't trust us. How about we just spin off CNN and sell it, and then it wouldn't be an issue anymore. As it stands right now, it's just not looking good for this merger. It looks like the Ellisons are about to lose when they have never lost before, and they are flailing.
Yeah, I don't have any good news on this front. We're trying to stay as fair as possible about this, but if we're keeping score in this game, this was a bad time for the Ellisons. The op-ed piece was just soundly rejected and, in fact, ridiculed by many, many people. We are seeing all sorts of op-ed pieces come out this week on how the Ellisons can save the deal. You don't say that unless you're pretty sure they're not going to save the deal. One of them suggested what Raul did, which is you have to throw Barry Weiss under several buses. The reporting I've seen has indicated that the Ellisons still support her. However, let's be honest, what we always see in sports media is, the dreaded, hey, I still believe in the manager, and then 5 minutes later we find out the manager's been fired. So when you get that sort of message of support, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just informational at this point. The other thing that was suggested is that the Ellisons need to read the writing on the wall. They need to realize there's an election coming up, and it looks like there's going to be a tipping point and a reversal. And at this point, the friends they have aren't the friends who are going to be running the government very soon. And so they should be planning for 2027 and then especially the 2028 election. And one even went so far as to suggest that the Ellisons should reach out to Kamala Harris, which isn't as ridiculous as it may sound, because if nothing else, she is the former two-time Attorney General of California and an antitrust expert. People are throwing out suggestions like this because the current prevailing belief is, unless something changes, this deal is going to collapse. Raul, I know, has said all along that he felt strongly this deal didn't have a prayer of getting through. I am telling you right now that I'm not even sure it's a coin flip to survive this long, but we all know this has been a twisty, turny, circuitous series of events. Pretty much everything with Paramount has been for the past 5 years, and I wish I were joking. I'm not. So I rule nothing out here, and I think that if the Ellisons are smart, they should be negotiating. They should be saying, hey, we'll give up CNN. We don't really care about it. One person does, but they're not us. And so we can work a deal on that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that people who've been doing business as long as Larry Ellison have connections, and they have the kind of connections that can make a difference here. But right now, in simplest terms of Dungeons and Dragons, the Ellisons need to make a saving throw against this deal dying.
I read the piece arguing that the Ellisons should probably reach out to Kamala Harris about this. It was a little bit of clickbait. I get what they're saying. They're saying that they should reach out to pro-business people in the Democratic Party. But as it stands, this is a losing proposition at this point. This is where the rumors came out that perhaps Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, might want the lawsuit to be settled. But as it stands, Gavin Newsom is no longer going to be governor of California by November. And so his ability to sway the outcome of this trial is not very strong. Rob Bonta, on the other hand, as Attorney General, still has plenty of time as Attorney General of California, and he is looking down the barrel of victory. There's no reason for him to settle any more than there's any reason for someone like Kamala Harris or another pro-business Democrat to want to come out in support of this merger, because it's a losing proposition. You might be able to convince enough people that this merger should go ahead, so much so that in fact the merger does go ahead. But why? Who are you winning over by doing this? Especially within the Democratic Party right now, where these social democrats are starting to gain a lot of momentum, and that would lose you all those votes from the social democrats. So as it stands, there is no benefit to any Democrat coming out in favor of this merger. It's a Hail Mary by the Ellisons, and it's not going to happen. When they're about to lose, no one wants to get on board with this proposition, with this merger. There's other opportunities elsewhere for them to maybe make friends with big business. As it stands, the New York Times wrote a rather lengthy profile of Larry Ellison, the father of David Ellison, who is bankrolling a substantial portion of this merger, and it's not good. There's a lot of borrowed money right now, and the prospects for Larry Ellison's Oracle Corporation are tied very closely to the future of AI, and it's not looking good for AI. So if you're a Democrat wanting to make friends in big business, maybe the Ellisons are not the people you want to be friendly with. Honestly, I do not see how the Ellisons win this at this point. This merger probably collapses long before it ever gets to trial in March. And even if it does get to trial in March, everything that's going to be revealed in the testimony will be terrible for the Ellisons, and the outcome of this merger is almost certainly sealed at trial, if not before.
In other news, Disney reported their first full quarterly earnings under new CEO Josh D'Amaro.
Yeah, this was actually a bad week for Disney critics because Disney did a lot of smart things, and it's going to frustrate some people who are just convinced that Disney does nothing right. The reality is that This was one of the best quarters I've ever tracked for Disney. Now, I should lead by saying that they missed Wall Street's revenue estimates. They missed by 180 million. And again, Wall Street sets those estimates, so that is not a big deal. More importantly, however, Disney's revenue was up 7% year over year, which is nice, steady growth. And their earnings per share was exceptional at $2.06, which means they beat estimates by about 20%. On top of everything else, and what matters the most here, literally every core of Disney improved year over year. One of them improved by more than 100% in terms of operating income. So this was the kind of quarter that gets attention because Disney made money, and it made money everywhere. Historically, what's gotten Disney into trouble is that they'll have 3 or 4 cores. Most of the cores do very well, but one won't. And for whatever reason, Wall Street suddenly decides that's the most important one. We definitely witnessed that during the streaming era where Disney Plus had first started, and it was a loss leader. For whatever reason, people suddenly decided almost overnight, well, we don't care about subscribers. You better be making a profit, which Disney Plus wasn't at the time. Well, now at the current pace, Disney Plus would be a profitable venture to the tune of more than $700 million in this quarter, which equates to almost $3 billion for the fiscal year. This was steady, solid growth across the board. And on top of that, Disney also announced a TikTok deal. And Raul, I know that you're conflicted about it, but let's talk about TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time Disney makes a technology deal, it always seems to blow up in their face. I'm reminded most recently of Disney's deal with OpenAI, which gave OpenAI license to use Disney characters in AI-generated content. This deal with TikTok cuts 2 ways. First, it suggests that content from TikTok creators that create content based on Disney IP will appear on Disney Plus. Now, I find that laughable on its face because we're reminded, and once again, I was quite cynical about this one as well, about how the ESPN app was going to be a home for user-generated content, and that never materialized. So how likely is it we're going to see user-generated Disney content on Disney Plus? Now, I said this is a deal that cuts 2 ways because it also makes Disney IP available to content creators on the TikTok platform. Now, that's something else altogether. If you are an adult fan of Disney and you want to create a video about a Disney attraction or the latest Disney movie or something funny that you saw in the Aristocats, for instance, you will now be able to easily access that Disney content so that then you can put your talking head in front of that content and make your point. And that is where arguably that content can then be transferred over from TikTok onto the Disney Plus app. That could work. The question is, when does this materialize? Because a lot of these deals promise that it will happen at some point in the future, and then by the time it actually is supposed to come around, everyone's totally forgotten about it and nothing actually happens. I will point to, for instance, how we were promised that we would get access to ESPN Unlimited if we were a YouTube TV subscriber, and how many months did it take for that to happen? And now that it has actually happened just this past week, the mechanics of it are so confounding that I wonder how many people are actually going to take advantage of this offering. The way that Disney leverages technology is problematic, and Disney really needs to start getting their act together if they actually want to make these technology deals work well for the company.
I think it's interesting you mentioned OpenAI because from a meta perspective, this is basically that deal switched from an up-and-coming AI company that may not make it to a very reliable social media business that we all know is going to be here for a long time to come. Same concept. We're going to license this stuff to you, and in exchange, you're going to license your tech back to us. The difference here is that now we're going to get user-generated content on Disney Plus, theoretically. We're still waiting for the user-generated content on the ESPN app. If Disney has added that, well, I don't know because I've just started using ESPN Unlimited. I haven't found it if it's there, and I haven't heard about it being added. And that's kind of the thing with these huge proclamations. It's to Raul's point. Disney has a problem with promising this stuff will do very well, and then it tends to fade into oblivion. This time, however, I think is going to be different because we're entering what everyone is suddenly calling the aggregation era of streaming. The first era of streaming was get as many subscribers as you can. Everyone's been pretty good about that except Peacock. So phase 2 was you need to turn a profit. Everyone's been pretty good about that except Peacock, which only recently did it. Now phase 3 is going to be making sure that you can compete with all free services. That includes Pluto, that includes Tubi, and more importantly, that includes content from social media sites like YouTube and like TikTok. Those are the real threats for eyeballs and, more importantly, control of your phone. There used to be a thing where all of the legacy media companies wanted to control your living room. TV manufacturers did as well. It's no longer about the living room. Now it's about your phone because that's what you're most likely to have in your hand. So that's how you're going to spend your time. And if you're spending your time there, that's how you're most likely to spend your money. And so everyone wants to be the one true app, which brings me to One Disney, which Josh DeMar hopes becomes the one true app for Disney fans. This TikTok deal specifically increases the odds that people use Disney Plus more often if it breaks the way he wants it to break. Raul's right to have questions here, but I understand the point. Just as I also should mention, Peacock licensed their content to YouTube. I know that that is very, very strange, but if you subscribe to YouTube Premium, as of the start of 2027, you will have access to all Peacock content. But we also learned that Disney bid on that same content, which means Disney was willing to pay Comcast money in exchange for showing content from the Peacock app on Disney Plus. That would be aggregation, just like the Disney bundle currently includes an offer with HBO Max. Theoretically, people at some point will be able to watch HBO Max content via the One Disney app, Disney Plus.
Yeah, the question of platforms for streaming was a conversation that I introduced on this podcast 5-6 years ago.
It was during the pandemic. You saw the future and nobody went along with it.
It was very cursory at the time, and I wasn't sure that, honestly, the corporations really saw the relevance of the platform. The platform being, of course, set-top boxes like Comcast has their Xumo box, or Amazon has their Fire TV sticks, or there's the Roku set-top box, which now that you hear that, you start thinking, wait a minute, didn't Fox just buy Roku? Yes, corporations are finally, years after I told them, starting to look at platforms as the future. You can today, for instance, running your Fire TV stick, go into Prime Video and select a number of different pieces of content, and Amazon will tell you, yes, this content can be played through Prime Video. But then when you try to play it, it tells you, oh, wait, you have to subscribe to this other platform first, or you have to rent this movie, or you have to buy that movie. So Amazon definitely is getting there. It understands the future of platforms. We are definitely getting to the point where it's all going to be about the aggregators, the platforms. And streamers like Peacock are not in the business of launching their own platform. And so eventually they, like Sony, will become arms dealers. It is the term that has been used in streaming for some time now. These are the companies essentially that produce the content and then license it out to others. We told you about the Peacock YouTube Premium deal last week. It does look like YouTube is going to pay some kind of wholesale price to Peacock for every subscriber. All those subscribers will be largely in the US. There is roughly 20 to 25 million US subscribers of YouTube Premium in the US. But there are scenarios now where if you are a Peacock subscriber, you look at this and you say, wait a minute, I could just cancel Peacock, sign up for YouTube Premium, and then I get YouTube with no ads and I get Peacock. So there is some danger to Peacock here. It becomes almost irrelevant to be Peacock as a standalone platform. All of a sudden, with one fell swoop, YouTube Premium subscribers who may or may not end up having to pay more are going to find themselves with the ability to watch Love Island, The Traitors, the Real Housewives shows, as well as all the sports content that is on Peacock, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and oh my God, Sunday Night Football on YouTube. And all you need to do is pay one monthly fee for YouTube Premium to get this. And Disney is looking at this and saying, yes, we want to be that platform as well. We want to be the place where people load up the One Disney app and they will have, your Disney shows, your Hulu shows, your ESPN shows, but also maybe at some point your HBO Max shows and anybody else who wants to come on board, including evidently some user-generated content via TikTok. It's a smart move, and it is the next phase in the streaming wars.
So we've been saying for a while now there would be consolidation. This story was underreported this week, but I feel very strongly that Comcast just basically took the money and ran. Comcast is going to spin off NBC Universal and Peacock, and it's just trying to get money while it can. And it knows Peacock isn't long for this world, which means Peacock seems like it became the first consolidation candidate because this is a last gasp for the service. And the reason why I feel that way is Peacock can no longer grow. At this point, Peacock subscribers, as Raul just said, are now incentivized to use YouTube Premium instead for the same content because you get all the benefits of YouTube as well, and you're only having to pay for one service. Everything about this is brilliant for YouTube. I understand why they did it. I understand why Disney was toying with doing it. I cannot understand why Comcast would do this if it believed in the long-term future of Peacock, which tells me they don't believe in the long-term future of Peacock.
This speaks to one of the biggest shortcomings that I've mentioned repeatedly about Peacock and the fact that Peacock has trouble with growth because they remain a US-only streaming service. For them to become an international streaming service, they would need to launch in many other countries at a considerable cost. It costs money to launch a streaming service. We told you about this last week, how Disney is spinning off their partnership with A&E Global Media. If they wanted A&E Global Media to become a modern platform, a modern studio, they would need to launch it as a new streaming service. But it costs money to launch a streaming service. So instead, Disney just got rid of it and made it somebody else's problem. Similarly, if Comcast and subsequently NBC Universal wanted Peacock to grow globally, they would need to launch Peacock as a global streaming service. That is a cost they do not want to invest in. So what is the best way for you to get Peacock content out there in the world if it's not in the US? Well, lo and behold, Comcast gets into a partnership with YouTube, which is available around the world. And indeed, if you are a YouTube Premium subscriber outside the US, you will get access to limited amounts of NBC Universal content through this new deal that YouTube has made with Peacock. This is, as David pointed out, the last gasp of Peacock.
Okay, Tim, so we had new movies open this week, but I don't know that we really need to talk much about them because it's all about Spider-Man, isn't it?
So I should have accounted for this last week when we were discussing the opening that what Sony was going to do was on Sunday, the estimate would be just short of the all-time record. But then when the actuals came in on Monday, oh, look, we found a few extra $1 million in some couch cushions. We broke the record. $360 million in a weekend, folks. What the absolute hell. Of course, it was just demolishing everything, depending on how you feel about the Odyssey, all the weekdays. As we record this on Saturday, it's already at 553 million domestic. It's been a week, folks. It's 1.2 billion worldwide. What is going on? Oh my gosh. We have a second Friday of 43 million, down a catastrophic 75%. But I actually think this may come in with one of the biggest second weekends of all time. Are we discussing now the all-time record? Is that in play at this point?
I presume you mean global box office, and if so, I think no. But I was saying last week I thought it had a chance to beat No Way Home's final box office take. At this point, I kind of think that's a foregone conclusion, which means this is a $2 billion movie, and I think it has a really good chance at $2.5 billion. So it is going to be one of the 5 or 6 biggest films of all time. I think that we're both giggling a little bit about how the actuals just conveniently came up a comfortable amount above Avengers Endgame.
Right.
But, when you get in that range, you're entitled to cheat, the way as I look at it.
At that point, right, sure.
We love when records are broken, so go for it. It's fantastic. And the scorching pace this week certainly suggests they have not met all of the demand. We talked about this a long time ago on Box Office Profits when The Dark Knight came out. Its first 15 days were just wild. It was just like sellouts everywhere.
Yes.
And then past a certain point, it reached all its demand and it kind of died relatively quickly after that, which isn't the way people tend to remember that story. But for a time, everybody was like, oh, it's going to beat Titanic. And it most assuredly did not. I don't think that's the case with Spider-Man because Spider-Man has a history of lasting pretty long in theaters. And we just learned it's getting IMAX screens in a couple of weeks. So, it's going to hang out in a steady, good range for a while, which means I'm not ruling out the box office title. I don't think it's likely. I think it's only got a 10% chance. But in a week, I might move that up to 25% if it keeps doing really, really well. International box office remains a mess, but this was an absolutely incredible performance, and it hasn't slowed down domestically at all. The one point I will make is, even with the increased actuals, it still finished more than $250 million behind Endgame in terms of global box office in its first weekend. So, there is still a lot to be said internationally, and it's nobody's fault. It's just that business model has changed in the 2020s due to outside circumstances. But this is fun, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. No Way Home in 2021, 800 million domestic, 1.9 billion worldwide. So yeah, 2 billion is absolutely in play, but it's just amazing that, it helps that it's a good movie and the timing, the goodwill people have for Spider-Man. And we're only half joking, Tom Holland and Zendaya is just remarkable that this is still able to happen. Yes, there is a big gap between number one all time domestically, which is The Force Awakens, 936 million, and number two, which is The Avengers Endgame, 858 million. No Way Home, by the way, is third. Third is absolutely in play, possibly second. Number one, we need a little more data. The odds are maybe 10 to 15% right now. But yeah, this is just, I'm blown away that this can still happen, even though just how dramatically everything has changed, not just because of the pandemic, in the 5 years since No Way Home, really.
It is incredible. And then we also want to have the conversation about scale, because things like Obsession and Backrooms were absolutely ridiculous performers for indies. Toy Story 5 gradually became the number one film of the year. And now we're pretty sure The Odyssey is going to beat Toy Story 5 maybe by the time this podcast comes out. It's getting in that range. Spider-Man has beaten both of them in 7 calendar days.
A week, yeah.
And I want to emphasize, we thought Backrooms and Obsession were incredible. Toy Story 5 is a massive hit. The Odyssey is probably Nolan's biggest hit ever, because I don't count The Dark Knight because that's Batman. You know what I'm saying? As far as Christopher Nolan films go, he'll never top this.
Exactly, yes.
And Spider-Man has passed them like they were standing still.
Right. It makes it look like disappointments in comparison. No, these movies are going to make $500 million domestically. They're over $1 billion worldwide. Truly amazing. And I think we need to have a discussion, because last year, Marvel did not have a good year. Yeah, it was all the Disney MCU stuff. Spider-Man is Sony, is separate. That's kind of been the outlier. And then we do have, in December, Avengers Doomsday. Do I have to suddenly say, oh my God, Marvel's back? This is going to be another potentially $2 billion movie?
I think we do need to be careful about this. Of course, the Spider-Man franchise is produced under Sony's umbrella.
Right. And I'm making that clear. Yes.
Yeah, and so we need to be conscious of the fact that, despite the fact that Disney's Marvel Studios has produced some good movies over the last couple of years, they have not hit at the box office.
They had a terrible 2025, yes.
Very much so.
And that's what we kept saying. We're like, wow, now there's a whole year between Fantastic Four and the next actual MCU one, kind of ignoring Spider-Man at the time. But we were like, Marvel's in trouble.
The fate of Avengers Doomsday may very well hinge on whether or not Spider-Man is in that movie. Right now, there's nothing to suggest that he is, or is there. I don't know. I'm not implying one thing one way or another. This may well be Tom Holland's success, not even Spider-Man's success or Sony's success. The fact is that if you combine all of this together, you jumble it all together, you take Tom Holland and Spider-Man and Sony, and you toss in some Marvel with it all.
And Zendaya.
That is what,
and
Zendaya, don't forget Zendaya. That's what makes it all work together. And if you don't get that exact combination of factors with Avengers Doomsday, then maybe we just need to have lower expectations for Marvel movies going forward.
So I actually wrote about this during the week, and one of the things I said was, if Spider-Man is in Avengers Doomsday, they need to be doing the marketing for it right now. And I mean, they need to be screaming it from the rafters, he's in this film. If they were planning to keep that as a surprise, that day has passed. We live in different times now. They need to
just tell us Spider-Man is in this movie.
Because it probably makes a $500 million difference.
Right.
And I know how ridiculous it sounds, yet nobody's going to argue the point right now today, are they? So that's my first thing. And the other point I want to make, I can tell you right now, the headlines in mid-December are going to be Spider-Man is more popular than all the other Avengers combined, because when Avengers Doomsday opens less than this, and it will, because first of all, that's the record. And second of all, Doomsday has a December opening. So it is inevitable that it doesn't beat this.
Right.
So when that happens, people are going to say, hey, Spider-Man, you're the one, not the Avengers. And that is going to be a boon for Sony, and it is going to be a problem for Disney yet again. And I'm looking at all this, and I'm trying to figure out what the play is. And all I've come up with is you can shoot a scene and put it in before a December release in August.
Right. You still have time, right?
The Russo should have Tom Holland in their office tomorrow to talk shop if they haven't yet.
The one little piece that is not Disney owned is the most dominant force in Hollywood right now. It is mind-blowing, especially with these numbers, which we just honestly didn't think were going to happen ever again.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point, but the other thing to keep in mind is Sony has been a trash fire with its comic book movies for the last 3 years. We've been making fun of all of them. Even the latest Venom
It's Morbin time.
Was a huge disappointment. Yes, it's Morbin time. Everyone loves that meme because the movie is so unashamedly god-awful. And now they just turn around and do this.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Let's talk about the ratings.
We have the Nielsen streaming ratings for Monday, July 6th to Sunday, July 12th, 2026. And to the surprise of nobody, Love Island USA, 2 billion minutes for its 282 episodes. This was, of course, the finale week that arrived on July 12th. There will be a reunion episode at the end of August. You knew it was coming. It was the final. It was going to be a huge number. Amusingly, Nielsen has now resorted to listing it as Peacock Asterisk with some fine print that says earlier seasons of Love Island are also available on Paramount Plus and Disney Plus, because we know the majority of this viewing is actually coming from Peacock for once. So good for them. But yeah, this is 2 billion minutes. My gosh. Okay. So we should see it slide down the list over the next week or two, and then we'll be back again next year. New in second, Little House on the Prairie, 926 million minutes for 8 episodes.
That's an acquired show, Tim.
No. It's not a rerun that you can watch on Tubi or Pluto Roll. Netflix saw how well these shows were doing and decided to make a new one. So, yep, here it is. Get ready, folks. The Gunsmoke reboot should be greenlit any day now. 8 episodes arrived on July 9th. We knew it was going to be a hit. It is a new update of the Ingalls family and their trials and tribulations. Not surprised it's a hit. I'm surprised this is a good number. I think it actually might even go higher next week. And again, it got the instant renewal. They renewed this one for a second season like 3 months ago. It's either when it's still in the can or not at all at this point.
I guess my question is, have you heard or know anyone talking about the show?
No. But I didn't know anyone watching it on on the fast sites either. So
we live in our echo chambers. Do we know anyone who's watching and loving Love Island or any of those, say, trashy
it's the death of the
crime shows?
monoculture. Like I talk about it with music all the time. A song in the UK has set the record for most weeks at number one in the history, and you've probably never heard it. Even if you live in the UK, you probably haven't heard it. But it's everyone has their own silos and echo chambers as far as content. Yeah, I expect more reboots of old shows to come from this. Worst Neighbor Ever is unfortunately still in third, 820 million minutes for its 4 episodes. Spinoff, of course, Worst Roommate Ever. It's all just true crime nonsense. I Will Find You continues to be pretty resilient, 718 million minutes for 8 episodes for the latest Harlan Coben adaptation. But new in 5th, I actually caught myself because I was assuming this was Netflix. No, this is a Peacock show. The 5-Star Weekend, 629 million minutes. So is this advertised when you're watching Love Island, or it's the thing that played when you concluded Love Island?
100%. It's got to be that.
Yeah. We did talk about it. What's new? It's Jennifer Garner, Gemma Chan, Darcy Carden, Regina Hall, Chloe Sevigny. It's a chick show. It did get renewed for a second season based on these numbers, so I would imagine they will roll it out after Love Island's next season concludes. This one arrived on July 9th. Pretty sure, it was what Peacock recommended to you after you finished watching Love Island. Avatar: The Last Airbender is 616 million minutes for 15 episodes and 2 seasons. Paramount Plus's Dutton Ranch, its first season now complete, 509 million minutes for its 9 episodes at 9th. Elle from Prime Video hangs on, 500 million minutes for its 8 episodes. And this one also got a second season, months before it premiered. So I predict they will once again go with the weekly release for that season as opposed to the binge method for season 1. That seems to be Prime Video's model. The Bear also hangs on, 491 million minutes for 46 episodes on Hulu. And returning in 10th, Silo, 385 million minutes for 22 episodes from Apple TV. The 3rd season premiered on July 3rd. So 2 episodes into its 2nd season is enough to get it back on the originals chart. I guess we need to stop being surprised. I know I say this, I think I say this every time an Apple TV Plus show shows up, but they're the prestige network now. Not surprised that if something is good, we'll eventually have enough following and Apple has enough of a footprint for it to get onto the ratings.
All I keep thinking is we're 3 weeks from Ted Lasso showing up, which means that Silo can hang on. They could have like 3 straight months. Yes.
Yeah. A streak and then multiple shows even. Yeah. Movies is happily led by Project Hail Mary, 922 million minutes for its full week on Prime Video. So yeah, it's super impressive. It is worth pointing out, as opposed to a lot of movies, especially like, Netflix slop and things like that, this movie is really long. So that does account for additional minutes.
Yeah, and it's really good. So I'm hoping it maintains at least this many minutes for a while, but it seems like with movies, they get 2 or 3 good weeks and then they kind of vanish. So I'm still in wait and see mode, but this is exceptional because this is the kind of film everyone should enjoy.
I will take a full week bump because we tend to not see that terribly often, at least on movies anymore, especially one of note like this. It is surprisingly dominating the movies chart because in second, I still like this movie, The Cheap Detectives, but that's 371 million minutes. So a huge gap between first and second, both of which also are on Prime Video. Those were the top 2 movies last week as well. Enola Holmes 3, 355 million minutes from Netflix. After that one also premiered on the ratings last week. Fourth, a Netflix documentary, Shipwrecked, Nightmare at Sea, 333 million minutes. I don't have much more to say about this one. Documentary about a cruise liner disaster and will probably scare you off from cruising, so I won't talk about it anymore. New in 5th, quote, new in 5th, Old Henry, 313 million minutes from Netflix.
All right,
there
Tim,
it is.
let's hear it.
Okay, yes. This is a 2021 Western action film starring Tim Blake Nelson.
Sure it is.
Distributed by Shout Studio, so not a theatrical release because they're a straight-to-video or straight-to-streaming company. Yeah, of course, it showed up on Netflix on July 9th, so that was good enough to get people to watch it. I don't know why. Avatar: Fire and Ash is still here from Disney Plus, 266 million minutes. While Spider-Man: Homecoming, 232 million minutes credited to Disney and Netflix. I thought this was the start of Spider-Man pre-gaming, and maybe we will see the other Tom Holland Spider-Man movies over the next couple weeks as we get closer to Brand New Day's release on these ratings. But the reason this one is here is because it showed up on Netflix and not the others on July 1st.
Credit to Netflix's buyers for knowing what was available and what was coming out in theaters.
Yeah, it's interesting they got that one, but yeah, the other ones are not coming to Netflix anytime this month, so we'll see if just being on Disney Plus is enough to get them back once we have Brand New Day in theaters as of these ratings. And because we flipped the calendar to July as of last week's ratings, Gone Girl is 8th, 218 million minutes from Netflix. And I'll skip to 10th, White Chicks, 210 million minutes from Netflix. Both of those showed up on July 1st. 9th is an HBO Max movie, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which I forgot was a 2026 theatrical release, 217 million minutes. On July 3rd, that's when it arrived on HBO Max. It did not have a very long wait between releasing in theaters, which happened in April, and then its release on streaming. Acquired is 8.5 shows we've seen before. This week it's led by House of the Dragon, 969 million minutes for 22 episodes. It is adding episodes weekly that are simulcast on HBO and then on HBO Max. So that's why it's here. So that is a bump with this most recent episode. So good to see. We do have a brand new show in 6, Dark Winds, 681 million minutes for 28 episodes. This was an AMC Plus show.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about why that's credited exclusively to Netflix. Netflix does have a distribution deal with AMC Plus, in fact, a deal that they expanded only recently, where now all the Walking Dead series will have their episodes on Netflix as well. But I'm pretty sure you can watch Dark Winds on AMC Plus in addition to Netflix, and yet the Nielsen charts only say that it's on Netflix.
Well, in their fine print, they do not count AMC Plus among these ratings, Raoul. They do somehow count Pluto TV and Stars, but not AMC Plus. So that's possibly why. But the 4 seasons of this show arrived on July 4th. Why on July 4th on a Saturday? No one knows for sure, but that was so a full week for it to get on the ratings. In 9th, we have something called Bluey Compilations, 641 million minutes for 9 episodes. Bluey is, of course, still on this chart. It is 3rd, 872 million minutes for 154 episodes. Did we ever figure out exactly what the difference is here?
So yeah, I went into Disney Plus because I was so confused by this. And if you do a search for Bluey, they do actually list Bluey and Bluey compilations.
Right.
They also list Bluey minisodes. So there's 3 different things now. And if you pull up the compilations, what they've done is they've taken several episodes and they put them into a single video, which means they're about 45 minutes each. And I think that that's actually for parents because most streaming services now, as annoying as it is, if you don't touch the button for a while, it'll be like, are you still there?
Are you still watching?
Yes. And if you're not still watching, they'll cut it on you because they're trying to cut their costs. Well, since Bluey episodes are only 7 minutes each, if you leave it running for like 5 and nobody interacts with it, it'll cut on you. So I think they've solved this problem and given you better Bluey babysitting.
So it's just more Bluey just in one. So now we get twice the Bluey on this chart. I was curious when that showed up. It does make sense, and that's just the nature of streaming services. The famous, are you still watching? We still have The Last Ship here. We still have Sullivan's Crossing, which returned last week. So a little bit of a shakeup with some new stuff on this chart. But yeah, a show adding new episodes is your top acquired show. Love Island's dominance has reached its peak. We'll see what happens from here. Just keep watching Project Hail Mary to keep it on this chart as long as, K-pop Demon Hunters. And then we do have some at least newish stuff. But yeah, because you watched Little House on the Prairie, here come all the remakes over the next year or two. Mark my words.
Thank you, Tim. As always, we close it out with what's been keeping us busy over the last week. And gosh, I have actually done a ton. So I'm just going to talk about Ted Lasso. It returned. It was only the first episode so far, but it just felt like a friend was back. It was a warm hug. I loved the way the story was told. I love that Ted and his ex-wife are co-parenting and doing it well, and that she really is also thinking about what works for him. I enjoyed our British friends' trip to Kansas City. I felt like that was very entertaining. And I've seen people who are from Kansas City talk about the city and how much they love certain things about the area. And I do think they got that right. I felt like Jason Sudeikis has more things to say, and I'm just really glad it's back. I missed it. There was no Coach Beard in that first episode. So get over to England.
Right. Of people who are still around. No Beard, no Roy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did get multiple characters. Yes, we got Rebecca, we got Keely, we got Higgins coming to Kansas City. So I got to watch an advertisement for tourism in Kansas City.
Yes, you sure did.
That's, yes.
And you're going to go get you some barbecue.
I still want some barbecue.
Yes.
Yeah, just something, I guess we have to apply the Ted Lassoism. Be curious, not judgmental. But to me, something felt a little off about it. I know it's kind of setting up the season, so I will give it a few more episodes. But I don't know. I was just like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this exists because certain people, maybe Jason Sudeikis, maybe Apple, just wanted more money.
See, I'm going to make the point that I thought Ted Lasso did a wonderful job of mirroring how he feels in real life and putting it on Ted Lasso, because he'd done all he'd set out to do with the show. He was done with it. And for a couple of years, he walked away and it kept pulling at him and he just missed it and missed it. So he writes the story as Ted Lasso leaves England. He leaves soccer, but he misses it. And I thought it was perfect. I really did. And Tim, I think we'll agree on this, if nothing else. The visit to the Negro League Baseball Museum, that was masterful, wasn't it?
Yes, that was great.
Yeah, that's the kind of, like Kim said, the warm hug the show has. We just smiled from start to finish, both of us. And after it was over, we were sad that we couldn't watch more episodes immediately. We've missed it.
I didn't hate it. I was just like, I don't know. Are we sure? It's like, sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. But, we have a whole season to go and we'll see. But yeah, I didn't love it as much as you guys, but there's still plenty of time.
Well, what I'm seeing online, and especially from critics, certainly aligns with what you're saying. So it's completely valid. It's just we missed it and it made us happy. And I think that there's not enough of that on television.
Well, all right. I'm not going to leave Tim hanging here. I share Tim's opinion on that first episode of Ted Lasso. I do feel that at the very end of that first episode, we got what we wanted. We got what we were expecting, and it does point to better things ahead. We need to get back to Richmond and the soccer. And when that happens, I think it's going to be a stronger episode. I felt the fish out of water scenes with Rebecca and Keeley and Higgins in Kansas City was not very strong at all. Putting Rebecca in these slapstick scenes with the barbecue sauce on her dress over and over again was tedious the first time, and by the end, I just wanted it to be over. I think Higgins probably was the strongest of the characters in this fish out of water. Look at these funny British people who have come to Kansas City and let's all laugh at them sequence. I think Keeley is problematic as a character at this point. This constant Chihuahua energy that comes out of her is confusing. I'm not entirely sure what it is they're doing with that character. I really don't follow.
Like, even in season 3, I couldn't stand her storyline. It's like the character is introduced as, footballer's girlfriend with heart of gold. And then from there, they keep giving her things to do and none of it works.
But the scenes with Ted, he is always going to be the nicest guy ever. It opens with a sequence where Ted does the nicest thing ever. He's always going to be the best written character of that show. So I really enjoyed the sequence with Ted. I enjoyed the sequence with his ex-wife, with his son. I don't know that I necessarily enjoyed the scenes with his mom because I don't get her character. She just seems to be really mean. I don't understand the mom character. I am frustrated that after 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, where essentially we went through an arc where Ted finally finds peace with himself, with his emotions, with his divorce, suddenly Ted is back in Kansas City and not happy with his life. We do this a lot with legacy sequels, where years and years and years after we've watched an adventure with a character, now we come back to that character and it turns out that it wasn't happily ever after. And evidently, this seems to be the arc here with Ted. We thought that after 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, it would be happily ever after for the sweetest guy ever. And it turns out that, in fact, no, he sacrificed himself for everybody else, but in fact, he is not himself happy. So everything that you got from those first 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, you can ball them up and throw them in the trash. Nothing came of it. Ted is still not happy. But hey, now we get at least 1 more season, or maybe as much as 3 more seasons of Ted trying to find his happiness. So let's all look forward to that.
Y'all just hate joy in storytelling.
All right. Thank you for listening to Streaming Into the Void. Please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts, and we welcome your feedback. Remember that we're on social media at Streaming Void and online at streamingvoid.com. If you like what you're hearing, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/streamingvoid. Be sure to watch for us again next week.